Support for this NPR podcast and the following message come from Red Bull Radio. Whether it's the latest dancehall out of Kingston, techno from Berlin, or underground hip-hop, Red Bull Radio is the place to tune in and discover great music that's new to you. Listen at redbullradio.com.
What do Luther Vandross ballads, Oil Sheen Spray, and Twice as Good have in common? They are all essential to some facet of the Black experience.
In the Nod, a new podcast from Gimlet Media, co-hosts Brittany Luce and Eric Eddings explore all the beautiful, complicated dimensions of Black life.
It's a fun and poignant examination of the biggest moments and the most underexplored corners of Black art, media, and culture.
Check it out now on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening. Just a heads up, this episode has some strong language and it might not be suitable for all ages. Enjoy the show.
I used to be an usher at Ford's Theater where Lincoln got shot.
Yeah?
Get out.
Yeah, and I quit like Chappelle Show. I just stopped going.
Yo, everybody, it's Stretch Armstrong.
Peace, my name is Bobbito Garcia, a.k.a. Cool Bob Love. That was comedians Dave Chappelle and Donnell Rawlings for What's Good with Stretch and Bobbito.
Your source for untold stories and uncovered truths from movers and shakers around the world.
We are talking art, music, politics, and sports.
And everything in between.
Chappelle and Rawlings are part of a month-long residency at the Radio City Music Hall this summer. We're going to talk to them about those shows and how they've gotten here in a minute. But since this is our first show, Stretch. Dun, 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 dun. Let's introduce ourselves.
Why don't we? Why don't we, Bob? In the 90s, we did a hip-hop show out of New York City at Columbia University's WKCR 89.9.
Ooh-wee.
And for roughly 10 years, we ran a show that introduced the world to many of the household names in hip-hop like Jay-Z, Busta Rhymes, Eminem, Nas, Mobb Deep,
Biggie, Old Dirty Bastard,
Wu-Tang, Fugees, DMX, Big L, and more.
The 300 unsigned artists that debuted on our show, as in the first time they were ever heard publicly live was on our show. To date, they've collectively sold 300 million plus records, and that number continues to grow.
The show's impact shook up the recording industry and laid the foundation for what would be modern-day hip-hop.
So, Stretch, that's what we did in the 90s, but right now we have switched gears and we're taking it somewhere else.
Well, we used to do a music show. This is going to be an interview show in which we're bringing in people that shape the way we think about identity, art, politics, and culture. And we're really trying to dig into the stories that you may not have heard from people that you might be familiar with.
People like Stevie Wonder, Chance the Rapper, Mahershala Ali, just to name a few.
And we're going to bring you into our world and perhaps put you onto some people that you might not be familiar with.
People that we are inspired by. Some are people who we inspire. And we're all sort of part of this collective. And what we want to do with NPR, we want to just share these stories with the entire wide audience that this platform receives.
So let's get to it. Coming up next, Dave Chappelle and Donnell Rawlings.
Boom. Support for this podcast and the following message comes from Red Bull Radio.
Whether it's the latest dancehall out of Kingston, techno from Berlin, underground hip-hop, or old soul gems, Red Bull Radio is the place to tune in and discover great music that's new to you.
With in-depth interviews and live performances from festivals around the globe, plus music handpicked by influential artists, journalists, and DJs, you'll know what you were looking for when you hear it.
Listen at redbullradio.com. And we're back. Joining us now is Dave Chappelle and Donnell Rawlings.
Dave Chappelle is the creator, host, and star of Comedy Central's Chappelle Show, and a legend of comedy, stand-up, live, sidewalk, whatever. He just released 2 smash hit specials on Netflix, and he's headlining a month-long residency at Radio City Music Hall in Nueva York.
Donnell is a comedian known best for his work on Chappelle's Show.
What up, son?
I can. He's gone on to appear in a series of cult hit TV shows, including my favorite, The Wire, Black Dynamite, and Black Jesus. He's one of the performers during Dave's residency at Radio City Music Hall.
Why all my credits start with black? Black Ash, Black Candy. He's got a black food chain he started, everybody. And here is the black and ashes, first of all, Black Donnell.
Welcome Black to the
Bienvenidos
show.
to our show. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Salam alaikum.
Wa salam.
Word.
So how did you two come together in the first place?
My first introduction to Dave, I'm older than Dave, but Dave has a longer stand-up career than I had. And when I was starting in D.C., you know, one of the things we always wondered was, like, what the guys from D.C. were doing. And I remember when I used to go to the Comedy Connection to Greenbelt, and Dave, you remember the guy, Mike Washington. He might owe you some money. I'm not sure. Yeah. But Mike Washington, he used to rave about you. He used to rave about you. And then when he used to rave about you, I was raving about myself. I didn't know who Dave Chappelle. I was like, what made Dave Chappelle so special? He was like, man, he's animated, he's funny, he's smart, and he acts out all of his stuff. You know what I mean? So when he did that, I went to the drawing. I was like, okay, I got to get more animated. No, but I knew of the legacy that he was starting. One thing about DC Comics, like when you know a guy's from DC, and then when he comes up to New York, it's just like an automatic type of connection. Like he's from, as we say, from the area, and that's how we started our friendship.
But when I went home, I used to go home to D.C. and I'd be like, "Who's coming up?" Everybody said you. Everybody was like, "Yo, that's the new dude."
And when you heard about Dave on the come up, how old were you? Because I know you started super young.
I started when I was 14.
Dang.
By the time I met Donnell, I was probably 22, 23.
Already a vet at 22.
So yeah, so that's what, like, I'm doing Radio City this month. The last night of the engagement is my birthday, and it will be the beginning of my 30th anniversary in stand-up comedy. So I'm real excited about, you know, like this run to me will be etched in my brain for good or for bad for the rest of my life. I think it'll be great though.
I don't doubt it. So as collaborators, how have you two influenced each other? I mean, can you think of a specific time when one of you made the other's joke better?
For me, like, I'm always in a learning process. And when, you know, Dave chose me to be on the show, it wasn't like a collaboration, you do this. I just was always in, like, the learning process. You know, I used to sit back in awe. And some of the things I used to do, I never really knew what I was doing. They would give me feedback like, yo, you killing it. But I never really connected to that. I was connecting to a person that, like, I felt was one of the best sketch performers to ever do it. And for me, everything was just like a learning process. And I get these questions all the time when I do radio. It was like, what was the best part of working with Chappelle? I was like, that, you know, he really trusted people that was close to him to have their own comedic sensibility. You know what I'm saying? It was never like, of course, we always had a blueprint. You know, we started with that, but it was never like, you can't say it like that because the words specifically say this. You know, he would, with the case for me, always give me some room to bring to Donnell-isms or what I would bring to any character that came up with.
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't even say that's the belief across the board. I'd say in the case of like a Donnell or a Charlie, you know, anytime you pass him the ball, that something funny's going to happen. And a lot of times, like, you could tell on the floor the sketch was going to be good just because it was so funny doing it. Although my favorite sketch is not the best one we've done.
What's your favorite?
The first Player Haters Ball, me, you, Patrice, and Charlie Murphy.
Right.
I think that was maybe the most fun I've ever had on a sketch.
The Player Haters Ball gives us an opportunity to hate on a diverse array of mock-ass mocks, trick-ass mocks, punk bitches and skip-scap skanks and scallywags, hoes, heifers, hee-haws, and hula-hoops.
Man, you ought to take that cane and beat whoever made that suit to death.
That was the dope thing about working that show. You never know when it was going to hit like that, but it was just so much fun.
Yeah, so I recently moved to D.C. with my wife and my son, and it's kind of incredible to drive around with her, just to listen to her, because she'll be like, Bob, like, that building wasn't there before. That whole block wasn't there before. And then, of course, there's a lot of other changes that are going on in D.C. as well. What do you miss about old D.C., and what do you not miss about old D.C.?
I do not miss the anxiety of poverty. I do not miss the murder rate being the highest in the nation. I do not miss the National Guard policing us.
I miss Marion Barry.
I do miss Marion Barry. My first job was one of those Marion Barry jobs. So every kid in D.C. was guaranteed a job, from 14 to 22, guaranteed a job. The first jobs I ever had was working in the mayor's youth employment program. And those jobs were hard, but they were good. Got me used to working. I used to be an usher at Ford's Theater where Lincoln got shot.
Yeah?
Get out.
Yeah, and I quit like Chappelle Show. I just stopped going. and then the guy called me up. He was like, "Yo, Dave, do you want to come get your check?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not falling for that."
So when you left the show, the people from the fourth theater was like, "We knew it was gonna happen."
Some people don't change.
Yeah. But yeah, I had the very unique honor of being painted on the mural at Ben's Chili Bowl.
I just drove by that this morning on the way to my son's school. And funny enough, I was like, oh, let me see if I can see Dave. But when you're driving by, it's in the alley. All you see is Prince.
Yeah, I'm in the alley. Yeah, all you can see from the street is like the Obamas and Prince.
This is the mural that's on Ben's Chili Bowl, which is an institution in the city.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna tell you, like you're nobody in DC unless you had a picture inside Ben Chili Bowl. So when Dave, and I don't get jealous or envious about a lot of things, but like, this dude got millions and everything. The only thing I was pissed about was like, he on the wall, son? So
deal.
I hired a graffiti artist that's going to vandalize it, right? and just put Ashley rolling dice right under Dave.
So let's move on to Radio City Music Hall. You've both performed extensively in venues of many sizes, but Radio City that's a unique venue, and it's big as hell. How do you maintain the connection to an audience when you're in a more intimate setting? I mean, I've seen you riff extemporaneously with people in the audience for half an hour, an hour. How do you bring that intimacy into an arena like Radio City?
That's a good question. I think that the shows that we're doing are very well curated shows. I mean, the talent that's on the shows, we went through very carefully and picked it out. Oh, hold on one second. I didn't know my phone was on. I'm so sorry.
Whoops. It's Ben Chili Bowl. It's taking your order.
It's the fourth theater.
The best part of it, is that at our shows, we ban cell phones. They're like cell phone free shows. And a lot of artists haven't experienced that. I think it makes an enormous difference in what a room feels like because it allows me to be more courageous with the types of things I'm saying. I got a wider margin of error. And it's oddly empowering to the audience, too. They get over not having their phone for a while. And if they need to use the phone, they go outside and use it.
Even at Radio City, that's the rule?
Phone free, man. I work with a company, Yonder, that locks.
You get a pouch.
Yeah, they get a pouch.
Yeah.
It's so funny, Dave,
pouch
because
is sealed, and they can't open it unless they leave the showroom.
The last theater dates I've done was with me opening for you. And I got so used to like people not having phones. And I just a couple of weeks ago, I was at NJ Pack and I did a theater, and people had their phone. It scared the shit out of me. I was like, "What the hell is this?"
Yeah.
I was like this. No, get him away!
It's jarring.
I thought you were gonna wonder why no one was taking your picture.
No. But it was just interesting because in a theater, environment, work with him. It's always you feel like people are 100% paying attention to you, but piggybacking on what Dave said, it's weird when somebody's in your face, they're trying to watch the show, but then they got the camera in front of you. How do you pay attention to the show and you're trying to get video at the same time?
It makes me just careful. When I see that camera, it gives me the feeling that I'm talking to more than the people in front of me. So then I start speaking with the precision of a lawyer, which is not funny. So
has that ever backfired, though? I remember when, before the election, you made jokes about Trump and Hillary Clinton in the same performance.
Were you at that show?
I don't think I was at that one, no.
Okay.
But because there was no film, no one could see the context in which you said what you said. And so you were quoted. And listen, comedy is, if you look at the literal words of what are being said, like comedians say outrageous stuff all the time. If
you read a transcript of anybody's act,
exactly,
it's going to sound crazy. I think that in that case, what does Trump say? Fake news. They said I was a Trump supporter or something like this, which was probably a deliberate misinterpretation of what I said. So, the only thing I can tell people is you got to come see the show for yourself. Like at any point in a career like mine, they could take any soundbite out of context, it would sound awful. And I thought it was a pretty unethical move. It was funny because I was actually talking on stage about the ethics of Pussygate. Beyond what we know he said, I was talking about the ethics of how we know what he said, about this ethics of secret recording, whether it's Donald Sterling or Donald Trump, and I didn't know that there was a journalist secretly recording. while I was talking about that.
We want to see the tapes. Yeah, Dave, you better hope those tapes don't come out. I wouldn't talk too much. You don't know them tapes coming out.
Dave, you mentioned in a New York Times article that it's hard to find an angle on Trump that sounds fresh, almost like you're part of a chorus. Donnell, Dave, do either of you feel an added pressure to be political in your stand-up? And does it affect your writing?
Added pressure, no. You know, Donald Trump's a weird phenomenon because I can't remember anybody, like, permeating the American psyche this completely. Everyone's always talking about this guy, thinking about this guy, speculating about this guy. It's really interesting. I mean, more so than, he's president of the United States, but still, he's a noisy president, man. His presidency is noisy. I don't know.
I haven't seen the president, like, we literally hear about them every second, every minute, every hour of the day. I was in the Bahamas like 3 weeks ago, and it was interesting because I'm like addicted to CNN. I cannot turn it off, you know? So I'm walking in a casino, and this white dude walked past, and I was like, he looks so familiar. I was like, where do I know you from? Where do I know you from? He was like, D.C. maybe? I was like, you from D.C.? He said, no. He said, Jason Miller, right? He said, Trump guy. He's one of the guys that defends Trump and everything. He said, Jason Miller, Trump guy. And I looked at him, I said, oh, Donnell Rawlings, Black Lives Matter, right? So, and it was funny, like, you know, you would think that those two, Make America Great Again and Black Lives Matter, would bump heads. But I stepped back and we looked at each other and we both had a little giggle, right? And I looked at him, I was like, boy, I was like, you got a tough ass job. And he looked around like somebody might be spying on him. And he said, you're right, you know?
So, Dave, you hosted SNL for the very first time last year, which is kind of hard to believe. You and A Tribe Called Quest splash SNL. And I think for fans of hip-hop and fans of you, that felt like a type of victory. Afterwards, you had an after party. I was privileged enough to supply the music for about an hour so that D-Nice could take photographs.
That was so dope.
And I think you got on at around 2 a.m. At about 4:35, my legs just started wobbling, and I had to go home.
I left, the sun was coming up.
But the next day, I heard you left the stage at 7 a.m.
I didn't know that. I was having a swell time.
That's so. Listen, your battery pack is phenomenal. Fitness has become a part of your life. It's obviously you hit the gym. Where do you get that battery pack, and where do you get the inspiration to have that kind of longevity?
You know, the last time I saw you, B, like you was skinny spaghetti arms, you know?
I know. I'm cock D's now. The experience of doing Saturday Night Live was very difficult for me. I was happy to do it. You know, the main reason I did it, I've said, is because, you know, Fife had passed away and Tippett called me and was like, this is our last Tribe record. And then Lauren Michaels put a heavy pitch on me. And I ended up doing it. I was pretty sure Trump was going to win. In hindsight, I imagine that Lauren knew that Trump was going to win because he was real adamant about me doing the first slot after the election. It was brilliant. I would have never thought. What I can tell you is the night that Trump won, the writer's room at 30 Rockefeller was the saddest place on earth. It started out like buoyant and everyone, oh, it's going to be great, and blah, 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 and everyone was typing and laughing and writing jokes. And they were doing this thing where they were calling the states on the ice at Rockefeller, so every few minutes you'd hear, hooray, or oh. And as the night went on, there was a lot of like, oh no. And then,
what the?
And then everyone stopped writing. And then everyone was just staring at the television. And then it was like sobbing. And then I was horrified because I was like, damn, I got to come back to television for the first time. And I'm sure there won't, like, nobody's writing a show. So I was frustrated because, one, I was certain that, I was pretty sure Trump, I live in Ohio, so you could smell it coming in the Rust Belt. And two was that, you know, as a black American, how emotional do you get about the political landscape? There wasn't an Obama in this cycle, you know, it was just a battle, you know, I almost said it. I shouldn't say it, but, it was like a battle of the whites.
Yeah. But the male white won.
Yeah. But it was, Obama was different. It was a very special time, and it was a lot of optimism that facilitated his presidency. And then this was like a filthy, cynical election cycle, and Anthony Weiner's dick was in it, and the one guy's grabbing pussy. Excuse my language. Are we not on live, are we?
Glad you're asking after the fact.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. And so it was an enormous amount of pressure, and I was bummed about it. And what turned it around for me was I went to the comedy club towards the end of the week. I was like, man, I got to do a monologue. I got to get a monologue together. And I ran into Louis C.K. And me and Louis had a conversation, and Louis gave me 2 very good pieces of advice. One was, don't worry so much about the show as long as your monologue is good.
I've never seen this before. I watched a white riot in Portland, Oregon on television the other night. News said they did $1 million worth of damage. Every black person was watching that like amateurs. So I'm staying out of it. I'm just gonna take a knee like Kaepernick and let the whites figure this out amongst themselves.
And the other piece of advice was, don't do your actual monologue at the rehearsal. And I didn't. I did a filthy version of a monologue at rehearsal.
But I was watching it with that monologue, and I think it was so good because at that time, in America, nobody was really laughing. That was the first week. It was just like you were at a funeral and you were doing a eulogy for America. That room, for like about 5 seconds, people felt good. You know what I mean? They had a good time. Listen to what you're saying, but they definitely believed in what you were saying. They couldn't have chosen a better person to do that first nail right after that election cycle. It was dope.
The short of it is, and thanks, Donnell, but the short of it is that so after it's all said and done, and I think that the Saturday Night Party originated this way, it's a tension reliever. I've never seen television made that way. That show is an enormous amount of pressure. And you'll see, like, throughout my career, I'll work with, like, alums from Saturday Night Live, and you can tell that these guys got a different acumen than everyone else. All of them can write. All of them can produce. All of them are very self-propelled because that's how they were trained. That's how they survive on their show. But it's much different than having a Chappelle show. They write 50 sketches to do 12. I would never do that. I would write 12 sketches if I needed 13 and maybe stretch one. You know what I mean? So it was like, it was good to see, but when it got to that party, I was ready to blow some steam.
And that's what kept you going.
Yeah, we got it in, man.
7 a.m.
That was fun, man.
It was a good time.
Up next, it's time for the impression session. Support for this NPR podcast and the following message comes from Blue Apron.
Blue Apron partners with sustainable farms, fisheries, and ranchers to bring you all the ingredients you need to create incredible home-cooked meals.
Ingredients come paired with an easy-to-follow recipe card delivered to your door weekly in a refrigerated box.
Rediscover how fun cooking can be while enjoying specialty ingredients and exploring new flavors and cuisines.
Get your first 3 Blue Apron meals free with your first order plus free shipping by visiting blueapron.com/stretch.
I'm Linda Holmes.
And I'm Stephen Thompson. There's more stuff to watch and read these days than any one person can get to. That's why we make Pop Culture Happy Hour.
Twice a week, we sort through the nonsense, share reactions, and give you the lowdown on what's worth your precious time and what's not. Find Pop Culture Happy Hour on the NPR One app or wherever you get your podcasts.
And we're back with the impression session.
So, Dave and Donnell, here's how it works. We're going to play you a song. We're not going to tell you what it is beforehand. We just want the two of you to vibe to it, digest it, and whatever it brings out of you, express it when we come back.
And you can talk on top of the song if you want to. Sing along.
Well, wait, can we turn the lights down?
You'll Stretch, you up first.
Hit it.
I'm feeling high. My money's gone. I'm all alone.
Do we comment now?
You can.
This reminds me of a time when I just moved from Washington, D.C. to Brooklyn, New York, when the poetry scene was really hot, when people was finger snapping. They were snapping at Brooklyn Moon Cafe. And Yasin Bey, most deaf at the time, they would come to the spot. And I met a young Erykah Badu, who I didn't know who she was, but she was a fan of my comedy because I used to go there. She was like, I think you're funny, blah, 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 this and that. And we exchanged phone numbers. The next week, I saw the video she did with D'Angelo. And then next thing I know, she was just this super, super huge star. And that's what that song reminds me of, my first interaction and contact with Erykah Badu.
Well, you're going to work with Radio City, right?
Yeah, but at that time, I wanted to really work with her. I wanted to work. I didn't know.
That's obviously Erykah Badu on, and that is the bootleg Summer in Sydney remix.
Yeah, I've never heard that with strings before.
Well, it's the Quincy Jones sample that Pharcyde used. It's lovely.
Your voice just got extra sexy when you heard Erykah Badu.
That's what she does.
You took it to a Quiet Storm moment.
That's what the impression game does. You know what it reminded me of, honestly? Cleaning an apartment on Sunday. Yo, I don't know if you ever did that where you're just like relaxing and it's like Sunday and you're cleaning your apartment. You put a record on that you like, and then in those moments I usually find I'm very content with my house or my surroundings. You know what I mean? Just nothing like feeling safe in a clean room.
Well, Dave, according to Elaine, the house don't be clean that often, so...
Eric?
Donnell's turning red.
Yo, they dirty, son. They are so disrespectful right now. I was just joking.
Yeah, I want to work.
It was not a setup.
This is a setup, son.
By the way, I don't clean up anymore. I have people that do that for me now. How you been?
I'm good.
I'm looking forward to that show, Erykah.
Me too. I am too. I can't wait to see you.
Likewise, man.
Can I tell y'all how I met Donnell?
Oh, yeah, I want to hear your side of it.
Let's see how truthful he was with his story. Let's go.
Brooklyn all day. All right, go ahead.
Well, we were doing these like in the early 90s, mid-90s. We were doing these open mics, to just kind of, everybody was kind of working out their material at the coffee shop. So we had to fit in with the coffee shop aesthetic. So we had to change whatever material we were working on to kind of fit that. So Donnell would get up and do poetry.
What?
Wow.
And yes, he would get up and do poetry. And I would kind of change my music into poetry kind of. Just, we were just trying to use their platform. And so Donnell got up there one night and said, I'm going to say this poem, and the name of my poem is How Can We Fuck Without Kissing?
Oh, on and on and on and on.
Who said I wasn't on the bad booty?
And then I got up and did on and on right after that.
It was hard for me. They wouldn't let me go to like on a comedy circuit, so I used to go to a little poetry spot, and that's where I met her. And I will say this about Erykah, like as much success as she's got, there's been times I've seen her plays, I was like, she's not gonna remember me, and she always like greet me in the most humble, most dope person.
Because the first time she heard you speak, you did a poem called "How Can We Fuck Without Kissing."
I mean, that was kind of unforgettable,
Yeah, who would ever? So, what was the conclusion of the poem?
I don't know. I blacked out.
Well, listen, Donnell, Dave, and Erykah, you all are part of this Radio City Music Hall residency slated for the entire month of August, and it's like a hodgepodge of stand-up music. It's clear that you have a crew of people that are like family to the fullest. But you have some new faces and some new voices, including Childish Gambino, Ali Wong, Chance the Rapper. So what goes into the curation of the family vibe with the inclusion of new voices and putting that forth in such a legendary venue like the Radio City Music Hall?
Well, I don't know. I think a lot of it is organic, but a big part of it is like something like this can't happen unless a lot of very significant people, put their ego aside. Radio City is what they call in show business a vanity gig. In other words, it's not necessarily the kind of gig you'll do to get rich. It's expensive to play there. It's not easy real estate to get. So the opportunity arose, and I called people that I respect and admire and love, and everybody came together, man. These times in my career are like priceless. It's like, I feel real fortunate to be part of these things, and I'm like very excited about it. This will be my 30th anniversary, man. This is the way to do it, with the people you respect.
Amazing. And Dave also chooses people that I have not had babies with.
I knew you should have came back to Brooklyn, Moon.
The list is short. Short list, but it's a good one.
Word. Well, Erica, we're about to play a song for Dave and Donnell, and you're more than welcome to hang out. So, Sammy, cue up the record, and we're going to play this next song.
This reminds me of dashiki shopping.
Sage burning.
Can I guess let me see if I can guess whose record this is.
I'd be very impressed if you know the artist. I'm sure you'll recognize the composition, though.
The composition is Equinox. It's a Coltrane tune, right?
It's a Naima.
Naima.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to guess who's playing it, though.
Yes, it's you can bring down Sam. The artist is Kindred Spirit Ensemble.
I was about to say that.
No, you wasn't.
Wait, Kindred, say it again?
Kindred Spirit Ensemble.
Kindred Spirit Ensemble.
Yeah, they're from Amsterdam, and on a label called Kindred Spirits. Some records scream at you when you're DJing, and some records kind of like they stick in your crate. Erica, you spin too, and I know you have a vinyl collection. There's moments where it's just like a song, you look at the spine, you look at the album cover, it's just like, play me. And that record just, there's so much percussion, and it's not always on 4/4, so it's not like popular American music. It starts running on polyrhythms, which brings us back to Africa and the intricacies of drum beats from there. And then when you add in John Coltrane and his poetry as a songwriter, it just starts hitting different chords in your body. I don't know if it does the same for you.
Yeah, absolutely. You ever heard of the Church of John Coltrane?
Mm-mm.
It's a church in the Bay Area where they literally just play train music. That's the church. That's the service. I mean, they play live, but yeah, I like that record, man.
Amazing.
But yo, thank you so much to all three of you for being on our show.
Much love. Thank you, man. And don't forget Radio City all the month of August. You've got to come through.
I would love to.
Pick a night, any night, every night.
It's going to be amazing.
It really is.
Amazing.
I'm there. I'll take the Amtrak up from DC, and I'll stand online.
Peace and light.
Yes, sir.
Bless.
All right, bye, Erica.
That's our show. This podcast was produced by Sammy Yenigan, edited by Steve Nelson and Nigeri Eaton. This episode features music by DJ Ellie Escobar.
Special thanks to our VP of Programming, Anya Grunman.
The executive producer is Abby O'Neill.
If you like the show, you can hear more at npr.org.
Or follow us on Twitter at Stretch and Bob, or on Facebook and Instagram at Stretch and Bobbito.
Join us next week for Mahershala Ali, the Oscar Award winner. Peace!